Is it possible that some of the Gazans can be absorbed in Israel?
Refugees could flee to neighboring countries until peace is restored.
Is there any sort of infighting, I'm trying to understand, in IDF and in Mossad?
The NPT is not a credible organization.
Are we going to see US boots on Gaza?
I'm in touch with a lot of leaders in Congress that do not think like the persons that you have mentioned.
Settlements are in between the East Jerusalem and the rest of the West Bank, just so that there is no territorial continuity.
How come Israel has defeated Hezbollah in a few months, has defeated Iran in 12 days, and is not capable of finishing this war?
In 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza, not only militarily, but civilian settlements also it withdrew, right? Do you think that you have miscalculated Hamas?
Jerusalem has never been the capital of any state except the State of Israel and the Kingdom of Israel.
On 7th of October 2023, Hamas took hundreds of Israelis hostage and unleashed a brutal violence. India, in fact, was one of the first countries that came out in support of Israel and condemned that dark act. As we record this interview on 17th of September 2025, the 2-year anniversary of that dark day is approaching. Also, in the coming days, United Nations General Assembly is going to discuss the Israel-Palestine conflict. Today, I have the honor to speak with Israel's ambassador to India, Ambassador Reuven Azar, on not only the growing ties between India and Israel, but also on the ongoing Middle East conflict, and of course, some of the human realities that go beyond the headline. Ambassador Azar, thank you so much for speaking with Asianet News. It's such a great pleasure to have you here. Ambassador, I want to start with a very basic, very fundamental question, which is, often if anything big happens in terms of violence, strikes, or anything like that, we see two types of narratives taking shape, not only in media outlets, also in literature, in history, books. One narrative focuses a lot on how Jews from Eastern Europe came to this land and displaced Palestinians. And of course, the other narrative focuses on how the Jews have been persecuted throughout history. So I want to get an understanding from you. Are we not past that debate? And also, is it only about Palestinian Arabs versus Jews, or are we missing out on a bigger picture here?
Well, thank you for that question, Hina. The main reason that we haven't passed that debate is because the Arab world around us, many elements in the Arab world, especially in the last few years when radical Islam is rising, is not willing to accept our presence in the region. Jews are indigenous to Judea. That's an historical fact. It's beyond doubt. Even in Islamic writings, there are stories about the people of Israel. But the challenge is that because of this radicalism, many Palestinians are being dragged into a continuous fight against Israel. And what is also very unfortunate, is that the international body that is supposed to be neutral and help to solve this situation is actually very biased against Israel, with bodies that actually are financed by the UN, and their only purpose is to perpetuate the conflict, like an organization called UNRWA that is actually perpetuating the refugee status for the Palestinians that are, for some reason, hoping to get back to Israel instead of building their own state. So this bias is creating another layer of difficulty that is prolonging the conflict. Israel, as you know, has offered very generous offers of peace in the past, and unfortunately were rejected. So we are today facing a situation in which there is a genocidal force, which is Hamas and other terrorist organizations, backed by another genocidal regime, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran, that has been, assisting them with weapons and with finance. There are other very extreme movements like the Muslim Brotherhood. So all of these are fueling this will to attack Israel, and Israel finds itself time and again in a situation that has to defend itself. And of course, following the 7th of October, the most atrocious attack against Jews since the Holocaust, Israel found itself in a situation that it could no longer accept a situation in which a terrorist organization controls a country, because the Gaza Strip was actually a Palestinian state before Israel had to invade it following the 7th of October. So what is going to be the future of Palestinian self-rules if each time that they assume power, they use it not to build their own state, but to try to exterminate our state? At the end of the day, we will have to, fight these radicals, and if we want to give the Palestinians a chance to have peace and get a leadership that is more conducive and more tolerant and more pragmatic.
Now, my question to you, Ambassador, is that Qatar has long been a mediator in ceasefire negotiation. Not only ceasefire negotiations, I want to focus on hostage negotiations, because still we have a lot of hostage in custody of Hamas, and we need to get them out, right? So my question to you is that Qatar, definitely in 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza, not only militarily, but civilian settlements also it withdrew, right? Do you think that you have miscalculated Hamas? Because Qatar has been providing financial aid to Hamas, and Israel has been saying that it wanted to continue with that, it wanted to allow it because it wanted to alleviate the humanitarian crisis. But do you think that for all these years, 17, 18 years, you've miscalculated Hamas?
Absolutely. I think we have underestimated the level of the threat. We weren't willing to confront this entity because we were busy trying to build our country. Democracies have a certain character. You try to minimize the periods of war so you can thrive in times of peace. And we've been postponing dealing with this situation in Gaza, trying to calm it in any way we can, even in ways that were controversial, just to, refrain from going to war. Now, this situation is going on for 2 years. And people are asking, how come Israel has defeated Hezbollah in a few months, has defeated Iran in 12 days, and is not capable of finishing this war once and for all? And the answer is very simple. First of all, we have the hostages we don't want to sacrifice in the course of defeating Hamas. The second is that we are talking here about a very complicated, densely urban warfare in which you have 2 million people that are being used by Hamas as human shields. So Israel could have actually, in 2 weeks, completely erased the Gaza Strip if it wanted to do so.
But what is going
But we don't have genocidal intentions against the Palestinians.
Right.
Contrary to what some reports in the UN are trying to insinuate. So we have been doing this very slowly. We were using some military pressure and the negotiations. And that's why we legitimized Qatar. Because we saw at some point that they could be conducive in bringing hostages back. What happened, actually, was that Qatar overplayed his hand. And instead of helping us, sealing a deal that was on the table until 2 or 3 months ago to bring half of the hostages, they actually helped Hamas to get rid of international pressure by this so-called starvation campaign that they launched. That was full of deceit. Now, there is suffering and hunger in some parts of the Gaza Strip, but this, starvation or accusation of Israeli starving population in purpose, it's completely false. And the Qataris, instead of helping us and the Americans to put pressure on Hamas, they relieved the pressure on Hamas and they showed their true face. And therefore, we had no choice but not to target them, to target the terrorists, the ones who are rebuking time and again our offers to bring this war to an end.
Right. You talked about the starvation in Gaza and the pictures and the images, visuals that we're seeing. Do you think that Israel is kind of dealing with this information warfare? Because we saw that during Operation Sindoor as well in India. Social media was flooded with a lot of narratives. There was a picture which went viral of a child in Gaza. He was absolutely frail, malnutrition. What is the reality behind all these pictures? Are they absolutely staged, or is there some truth to that?
Well, those kids are real kids, but they weren't suffering from starvation. They were suffering from pre-existing conditions, very difficult diseases. So the pictures were manipulated As you could see very clearly, any person with some kind of critical eyes could see that their family members were not starving. So it means that these were used as a tool to put pressure on Israel or to relieve pressure from Hamas. And the result is there. This war is getting prolonged. What we want to achieve was set up very clearly in the first day following this terrible attack, is to prevent a situation in which Hamas can rearm and regroup in Gaza, and that we bring back the hostages. So as long as Hamas refuses to do that, and as long as the international community fails to put pressure on their leaders, we'll have to continue this war to take over Gaza City. And if even after that they don't cooperate, we'll have to take the entire Gaza Strip.
Ambassador, I have a very fundamental question. I mean, when in 1947, United Nations partition plan was there, then Israel definitely accepted it, saying that yes, we are in for a two-state solution. Now it does not aim for it. Now my question to you is that if not a two-state solution, where is all of this going to end?
Well, as I told you before, Hina, there was a Palestinian state in Gaza before this war. So the greatest blow against the Palestinian statehood was what Hamas did. We withdrew from the Gaza Strip in order to give a chance for Palestinian self-rule, in order to empower the Palestinians to see, because we don't want to rule them. What will happen now is that we will have, in a very, very slow process, to try to regain trust, to create a relationship with the Palestinian leadership that is willing to accept Israel, is willing to negotiate, is willing to accept our offers. Because for the last 100 years, with very short periods of time of exception, they haven't done that. So, you can have a vision, that's okay. But we have to connect the vision to some realities on the ground. And those realities are that mandate us to, first of all, defeat the radicals, remove them from the field, and give a chance to the Palestinians to build their lives in a decent way.
Now, I want to talk about settlements, the even expansion plan which is going on. Now, a lot of people are saying that the settlements are in between the East Jerusalem and the rest of the West Bank, just so that there is no territorial continuity. And then this entire plan of two-state solution falls flat. My question to you is that before 7th of October 2023, do you think there was the slightest possibility there to actually reduce the settlements in West Bank so that, give a chance to actually build trust with Palestinians?
Israel has freezed the settlements many times in the past. But what we saw is that we are getting the opposite result. Each time that Israel puts an offer on the table and shows that it's willing to give up its interests and its rights. We have indigenous rights. It's not against international law if a Jew lives in Judea. It's like saying that an Indian cannot live in India. Okay? So even if we are one and only Jewish state, and we suffer from a situation in which we are we are alone in the UN against a group of 57 Muslim countries and 22 Arab states, it cannot change history. Okay? And if the Palestinians are not willing to accept our offers and they sort of get them as a sign that Israel is weak, then we have no choice. We have to continue actually exercising our rights until they get to a conclusion that actually time is working against them, and that waiting and rebuking our peace offers is not a good thing for them. And therefore, we have a very clear policy. We're going to continue exercising our rights in our ancestral homeland until the Palestinians show some seriousness when it comes to getting into a negotiation and into a peaceful resolution that will end this conflict and not maintain it for eternity.
Are we going to see US boots on Gaza or in West Bank in order to stabilize the situation?
I don't know. Israel has had a very clear policy throughout its history that we are fighting for ourselves. We didn't come back to our homeland to ask others to fight for us. And we know from experience that nobody's going to fight our enemies for us. We saw very well that, for example, when we withdrew from Lebanon in 2000, and then again after the war in 2006, we had a great UN force there. They didn't fight anybody. Why should any foreigner fight for Israel? We need to fight for ourselves. We need to defeat Hamas ourselves. If we manage to do that, then there is a chance that international involvement can become constructive. Then there is a chance that observers can come and actually help Palestinians to build their future independence. But this is not going to happen thanks to American boots or any other boots.
Right. I also want to talk about a report which talked about Great Trust Plan, and it says that how there is a plan to actually let Palestinians who are there in Gaza to take hostage in neighboring Arab nations, to go there, to live there until the Gaza Strip redevelops itself. Now, my question to you is that do you think that Arab nations first is going to accept it? Secondly, I want to know if this is going to be as per the wills of the Gazans, or is it going to be something which we'll see forcefully happening?
There's a lot of hypocrisy here, because in any conflict that we've seen in the last few decades, refugees could flee to neighboring countries until peace is restored. We saw it in Ukraine, we saw it in Syria, and we're seeing in other places. The Palestinians are the only ones that are not allowed to flee. And why is that? I think it's mainly for two reasons. Because the Arab countries are not sincere in trying to help their neighbors. And to a certain extent, they also are concerned. Because in the past, different groups of Palestinians have, creating chaos in countries like Jordan, like Lebanon, like Syria, like Kuwait, etc. So we have to deal with that ourselves. We are not going to forcefully exile people. We know that a very large amount of the population in Gaza would like to flee to a safe haven until the situation improves. And the question is whether we have vehicles to do that. This is something that we're contemplating. But at the end of the day, we know that the best way to serve the interests of our people and our neighbors is to get Hamas out of the Gaza Strip.
Is it possible that some of the Gazans can be absorbed in Israel so that you can better deal with the situation in Gaza Strip?
Well, we have been, dealing with a lot of humanitarian cases throughout the years. We've been treating thousands of Gazans in our hospitals. We've been employing Gazans in the past. Unfortunately, this was manipulated by Hamas, and we found ourselves, including on the 7th of October, with people that came to work in Israel, and they used that in order to draw the charts of attack and the plans of attack against Israel. So we are today much more cautious when it comes to hosting Palestinians as a result of that.
Right. I also want to talk about the anti-Semitic violence that goes on, not only in Israel, in other countries also. Recently, we also saw two Israeli getting killed in US. What is Israel doing to ensure the safety of these people? We do know that there's a lot of immigration also happening of Jews from across the globe through Aliyah flights. But what is it that Israel doing in order to ensure that Jews are not persecuted in any country?
There's no doubt that there's been a deterioration in the safety of the Jews as a result, mainly of radical Islamic elements that are very active in many places around the world, especially in Europe, in Western Europe, and in the United States. We are working with governments. We are cooperating both operationally and also through intelligence means. We are supporting communities. We are in touch with the leaders of the communities to try to see what we can do. At the end of the day, it is the responsibility of each and every country to take care of their citizens. And those who are failing to do so, I think should amend that situation. Sometimes we've seen that some leaders are actually legitimizing these attacks by distorting the entire narrative. We've seen that in Spain, for example, with the leadership in Spain that is very radical. That's completely unacceptable. And of course, it's our responsibility to make sure that any government plays its role in defending its own population, including Jews.
Talking about Jerusalem, this is one place which is definitely close to people from all religions, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, or whether it's Islam. US recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital in 2017, and of course, it drew a lot of condemnation also from across the globe. Do you think the situation could have been avoided in order to not hurt the sensitivities of people from these religious backgrounds?
Well, Jerusalem has never been the capital of any state except the State of Israel and the Kingdom of Israel. In any time in history, Jerusalem wasn't the capital of any Arab state or any Muslim state. And the sensitivity in Jerusalem doesn't derive from the fact that Israel doesn't respect the other religions. On the contrary, since Jerusalem was taken back by Israel, all religions are free to exercise in Jerusalem. The problem is with those radicals that do not accept Jewish history in Jerusalem, that are trying to erase Jewish history from Jerusalem. So the solution is not to surrender to the radicals in order not to, in order not to ignite their fury. The solution is to do the right thing, to confront the radicals and to support countries like Israel that support religious tolerance, that are ready to share the most sacred shrines with other religions. Under the slogan that Israel is trying to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque, many riots and many massacres have happened in the last 100 years. All of them were a lie. Israel never threatened the Muslim shrines in Jerusalem. On the contrary, we acted actively to preserve them and protect them. And therefore, more countries should join the United States in recognizing Israel. And there is a trend of more countries doing that. And as much as more countries do that, it will contribute to peace and not to instability.
Now, of course, Israel's demand has always remained that it does not want Iran to have a nuke, right? But at the same time, Israel does not want to join NPT. Why is this ambiguity there? Don't you think if it joins NPT, it will somehow help these nations to get a better, understanding what Israel actually stands for?
Absolutely not, and I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, the NPT is not a credible organization. There have been a multitude of countries that have joined the NPT, and they have cheated. You had Syria, that was part of the NPT, but was building a nuclear weapon. You had Iraq doing the same. You had Libya doing the same. And of course, the biggest cheater of all are the Iranians. But it's not only that. The Iranians have sworn to destroy the state of Israel. Time and again, they had a clock in the middle of Tehran, counting the time until Israel is destroyed. They had a plan, an operational plan, to annihilate the state of Israel in 2027, with a combination of several means. An army of proxies they have built around us, a huge arsenal of ballistic missiles, tens of thousands of ballistic missiles they were going to produce, and a nuclear arsenal. And they have been cheating the IAEA for years and years. Now, even after they signed the so-called JCPOA, they were continuing to cheat. And actually, the IAEA, only a few months back, has declared that Iran has breached the Safeguards Agreement, which is the most basic commitment that countries take upon themselves when they join the NPT. So it would be completely unfair to ask from a country like Israel to join an organization that has been constantly been cheated by countries that have sworn to destroy us.
Right. Okay. Shifting focus, I want to talk about how is the bonding between the communities in Israel, the Palestinian Arabs and Jews people. And I'm asking this question because sometimes in a bigger picture, we tend to reduce the issues to something which gives us a very narrow perspective of something. And I was speaking to one Israeli and he was speaking about how these communities, they live very peacefully inside of Israel. So I want you to talk a little bit about, because generally when we look at this issue, we just make it a perspective of Palestinian Arabs versus Jews. But how is these communities, bonding in Israel?
Well, I don't know if you know, but in Israel itself, without the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, we have 15% Muslims and overall 20% Arab, including Druze, Christians, Circassians, and others. Okay, all the citizens of Israel are equal under the law. Israel is the one and only Jewish state, and Arabs in Israel might not have national rights as Arabs because they don't have an Arab state; they live in a Jewish state, but they enjoy equal rights. And the effort of the government of Israel to integrate and include all the minority populations in Israel is a very active policy. For example, we have been putting a lot of stress in the last few years in including Arab Muslim women in the workforce, because generally in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, in the Western world, in India, in many other places, you have a situation of unprivileged women that are not part of the workforce, do not enjoy all the freedoms and the opportunities that the economy and the world has to offer. And we've been able, through efforts that had to do with academization, centers of employment near villages, etc., to increase the number of Muslim women that are part of the workforce from 15% to 55%. And that's a world record. So anybody that comes to Israel, and I invite you to visit, will see that. We have our Arab citizens immersed in many walks of life, in hospitals. It's very easy to see. A majority of the doctors and the pharmacists are Arab. We have Arabs in our courts, of course, in the parliament. So Israel is from that point of view, is a country that enjoys a very high degree of coexistence.
How is the interaction between IDF officers and civilians in Gaza during this conflict? I want to get an understanding, because there was a report which said that the one Israeli officer did not want to continue fighting in Gaza because he saw it as quote-unquote war crime. Is there any sort of discord such as this? Because recently, as per the report, we saw that Mossad also refused to get the troops inside of Qatar to attack Hamas leaders. So is there any sort of infighting? I'm trying to understand in IDF and in Mossad.
Well, first of all, Israel is a democracy, and we have a very fierce battle of opinions. And of course, when you talk about things of life and death, and war and peace, the controversy is even higher because the stakes are higher, and the degree that every Israeli citizen has to contribute to the state is so high that people are involved and they care. Now, regarding the Gaza Strip, there are people that are pacifists, not necessarily because Israel is conducting any illegal activity, but war is something that is very difficult, and it entails a lot of sacrifice and willingness to deal with tough decisions and tough moves. Not everybody, is prepared, willing, or capable of doing that. And of course, you have to deal with that with sensitivity, and that's what we are doing. Now, when it comes to this move we did against Hamas leadership in Qatar, there were differences of opinions regarding that. There was a tactical decision that the activity would be done in a certain way. It doesn't differ from the fact that there are people or there are organizations in Israel that are not willing.
So, Ambassador Azar, on 7th of October 2023, when Hamas attacked Israeli citizens, there were a lot of reports which said that Indian workers are now filling in the shoes of Palestinians who were working in agriculture sector, and there was a lot of criticism also regarding that, saying that why Indians are going to Israel to do this menial job. What is your response to that?
Well, first of all, we are a sovereign country and we're entitled to decide who we are going to allow into our country. And of course, it's a completely free choice by anybody that we invite if they want to come. It's actually pretty profitable to come to Israel. The average salary is $1,500, and there are a lot of people from around the world that want to come, including Indians. So last year, yes, we have doubled the number of Indian workers. We have a very, very thriving economy. Fortunately, despite the war, our economy continues to increase. We, like India, are lagging behind when it comes to building infrastructure, and we count on the talent and the capability of Indian workers to fill in that gap. So whether they have the will to come, they will come, and it's not in the place of anybody else. It's out of their free will and our free decision to decide who we are going to allow into our country. My sense, after being 1 year here, is that we have a lot in common in terms of our heritage, because we are very ancient civilizations, modern countries. For many years, we have been chased and persecuted and destroyed by foreign civilizations. And we finally got to the moment which we can build our own sovereignty back. We are suffering from similar threats, the threats of radicalism and terrorism. And we are fighting it independently, but while cooperating in the creation of capabilities. And that is a kind of trust that we've been developing for the last 3 decades, that is bringing us together big time. And, India is also a very tolerant society, a society that has accepted Jewish communities here. Israelis love India. We are adopting a lot of cultural and human sides of what India has to offer in spirituality, in yoga, in vegetarianism, in what India has to offer in terms of nature and sightseeing and healing. And that is something that Israelis admire, and that's why I think the Israelis are being loved in India, and why Indians are being loved in Israel.
When this attack happened, of course, there continues to be a lot of people who travel to India from Israel and who go to Israel from India for visit, for holidays, to just check around how the country is. How safe is Israel right now when this war is going on
in Gaza?
Safe.
It's very safe. Once we've been able to decimate the power of Hezbollah in the north, and the Assad regime fell, and we were victorious in this 12th war against Iran. Since then, Israel is much more stable. The travel in and out of Israel is very easy. We are now at a rate of about 100,000 people that are entering and exiting Israel per day. Our factories, our economy is functioning. From time to time, we have a missile coming from Yemen because of the Houthi terrorist activity, but it's not something that is really disturbing the day-to-day life in Israel. So it's, generally speaking, very safe.
Russia's RT television is in India, and it's expanding. It's making content which is more relatable for the Indian audience. Can we see something from Israel also of that sort, some sort of a digital platform or maybe TV?
Yeah, look, we are a small country, and unfortunately, we are not investing enough in this kind of soft power efforts. This is one of the lessons of the recent war. I think that more and more people now in Israel understand that it's not enough to invest in hard power in order to survive against those who attack us, but we also need to apply more tools of communication with audiences around the world. I hope that happens. But anyway, we have many other platforms in which we can interact. A lot of movement of people that come not only to do business, but also to do tourism, cultural cooperation, academic cooperation. It's happening all the time. And we are also counting on the rise of the big international Indian satellite channels that will probably be more friendly than others are.
There were a lot of comments from Congress party saying that Israel is quote unquote committing a genocide in Gaza. We've also seen Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan rebuking the visit of Israeli Finance Minister to India. What are your thoughts to these kind of comments?
Well, I think that we have to differentiate between two situations in which people are critical, and that's natural. We should engage with people that are critical, to have a conversation, to understand how they feel, to see whether they get the right information, whether there's something that we can do in order to change our conduct. That's completely legitimate. What I see as absolutely illegitimate is the attempt to put blood libels on Israel, on the Jews. We've been a people that have been persecuted with blood libels for the last 2,000 years, since the times of the Roman Empire, in which they saw monotheism as a threat and invented these blood libels, like the Jews killed Christ and all kinds of and Jews that were that were preparing the matzah for the Jewish feast with blood of Christian children, all kinds of blood libels, things that are invented. Okay, Israel doesn't have a genocidal intention against the Palestinian people. We are having a very difficult war in which we are trying to minimize the civilian casualties. Israel doesn't have a policy of starvation. Israel actually is the only country in the history of conflict that has been facilitating millions of tons of food to the enemy territory, more than anybody has done in the past. So when people try to put blunt labels on us, then it's very hard for us to remain silent. And I think that it's completely illegitimate.
These were some of the very prominent members of the party. Just in case, just assuming a hypothetical situation, just in case if Congress comes to power, because you were also foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister.
I'm in touch with a lot of leaders in Congress that do not think like the persons that you have mentioned. And I think that in the Congress party, there are a lot of sensible people that might have different opinions that engage in dialogue with us, and we are very happy to engage in that dialogue. So I think that we shouldn't paint all of the parties in one color. I think that there are certain people that are engaging this kind of rhetoric that I think is very detrimental to the Indian interest, to reality, and to a sincere attempt to create a positive dialogue that is also conducive and that promotes peace and not doesn't promote hate.
We have a consulate general in Bengaluru. What is it that the consulate general there is doing in order to promote the ties between Israel and the South Indian nations?
Our decision to put a consulate there in the first place derived from the fact that we see great potential in Bengaluru, and our Consul General, Orly Weitzman, is doing a lot of work in the economic field. There are many Israeli companies that are engaged in cooperation, in joint venture, in services there, in high tech, and we are increasingly looking at sourcing. We are engaged also in agricultural cooperation, and of course in a lot of other public activities, including cultural, that Orly is leading there with a lot of energy.
Have you ever had the chance to travel?
Well, not yet to Bengaluru. I've been to Hyderabad, I've been to Goa, to Kochi, and I'm looking forward to visit many other important and interesting places like Bengaluru, like Pondicherry, and many other places in the south.
Right. Israeli finance minister also came recently. What kind of bilateral agreements were signed between both the nations? The major ones.
The major thing is that we signed a bilateral investment treaty. That is a treaty that includes assurances for private sector companies that want to invest in the partner country, that they will not be discriminated against, that will be protected by the courts, that they will be able to repatriate their investments, etc. It's a very important sign for the private sector, and I'm sure it's going to contribute for the increase in investments, in mutual investment between the countries. But in addition to that, the finance minister came with a very big team of regulators in Israel that are very powerful, One of them, for example, is the Accountant General. He manages all the public tenders in Israel. And we are going to issue in the next 10 years, $200 billion worth of infrastructure tenders. And we are interested in attracting Indian companies to participate because we need the competition. And we know that Indian infrastructure companies have been doing great work here in India. So we engaged in exposing those tenders. We engaged in getting to know the companies. In addition to that, he came with the representative of our central bank. We are looking for better ways to streamline financial transactions between the countries. One option would be adopting UPI. This is something that we want to contemplate. The finance minister also came with the head of our stock exchange because there is a huge interest from institutional players in Israel to invest much more in the Indian stock exchange because we see, they see very well how India is booming economically and they want to be part of that success. So this visit has been immensely important for, advancing the bilateral relation, the economic bilateral relation, and I'm sure we're going to have results that are going to manifest themselves in the future. We are still working on trying to convince India to engage with us in a trade deal. We believe that would be mutually beneficial, not because we want access to the Indian market, because Israel doesn't produce a lot of finished products. What we want to do is to make it easier for the Israeli companies to source in India, to have industrial cooperation, and the free trade agreement would pave the way for that.
With Trump imposing tariffs on India, how is Israel looking to balance the ties with US? I know it's a very important strategic partner for Israel, but how is this balancing act going on?
Well, we don't have to balance between India and America. These two countries are very good friends of Israel. We are cooperating with them both. We had to sort out some differences with the Americans on trade. We've done that. So I don't think that for us it's a challenge. I think that we would like to see a situation in which America and India sort out their problems because I think we have all a common interest to become more competitive in this global competition we are all part of. And Israel is the biggest innovation hub outside the United States. We are very linked to the United States, but we are a pretty substantial hub, and we can benefit if all these three players work together better than if they don't. So I hope that these differences will be resolved.
And how do you see the camaraderie between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, I think it's a great relationship. What they've done since 2017 and 18 when they exchanged visits has been remarkable. I think that since then our relations have advanced a lot. One of the direct results, for example, is the fact that we have here in this embassy a water attaché, because we have identified the water is a huge potential for cooperation. India now is investing billions of dollars in maintaining and cleaning your water resources. This is something that Israel can contribute for a lot. Actually, as we speak, we have a water delegation in Israel with leading companies from India that are interested in the sector. And we are sure that thanks to the leadership of both leaders, our relations are actually on the right track.
Well, on that note, Ambassador Azar, thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with Asianet News on so many different topics. And I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Hina. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.